Well, today we're going to be talking about food. When you go on holidays, it's always very exciting to try new food, sample new things. But I find when you relocate to an area, the food can be a bit of a challenge. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but what I mean is that you're used to your comforts. When I moved from Australia, I didn't realise how much halloumi was part of my food, my stable food, and it took me a while to source it. Yeah. So I'm joined here by Carlos Zamora, and today this is going to be the beginning of a series of chats that we'll have on various food-related items around Cantabria. So welcome here today, Carlos.
It's nice, very nice to be with you here today. So I hope that, I hope to share. I was born here in Santander, so for me, this is the region I grew up. So it's basically, I've always been in love with it, and it's fantastic to be able to share with you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So you're Carlos Zamora. You're from Santander.
Yeah, I am.
And you own many restaurants here. Many of my favorite restaurants, I must admit.
Well, we started a restaurant company in 2006 with my sister in a restaurant called Deluz, which is up in the kind of Sardinero, which is the area of Santander that people would go and spend the summer holidays there. And so it was my grandfather's house, my grandmother's, and so we just basically turned this big house into a restaurant where people have events, weddings, just a restaurant, a normal restaurant. So that's the first one we started. We have this one here, like I said, Bombas, which is it's a beautiful space because it's a historical part of Santander. This was the old shipyard, a 19th century shipyard, and this is where the pump house was in order to take the water in and out of the shipyard. So this was so we did the project 8 years ago, and then.
So was this totally abandoned?
Yeah, it was abandoned. All this area, they redid the whole area actually.
It's incredible looking at the before and after photos, isn't it?
There's a big difference. When I was young, this was very kind of wrong. Well, actually, when I was young, this was 700 people worked here. Yeah. Actually, it was amazing. Then until the late 80s, they shut, and then it got a rundown process. So. They've redeveloped the whole area, so now it's a beautiful part of Santander to just walk, swim. There's a nice little beach now.
Gorgeous, and then a little bit further, Los Peligros.
Los Peligros, and then so this part of Santander has really changed due to.
And of course the gallery across the road as well.
There's an Aire, which is, and then there's a museum. There's the university. Yeah. So it's a beautiful part, I think, of.
So to be able to get in here on the.
This was a contest, so what we presented the project. It had to be.
I forgot about that.
Because it's a historical place. It's actually protected. It's called a big, so it's protected. So we presented a project where there had to be a cultural kind of agenda. So we do events, we do like talks, we do talks about health. We do talks with children about healthy breakfast or sustainable fishing. So it's more than just a restaurant in a way.
It's a community space in a way.
Basically a community space, where social interaction and interactions and stuff like that.
Yeah, fantastic. I remember, I think the first time I met you, and you won't remember this because you're so kind, you go around and talk to all the people who are in your restaurants. But we were, myself and Sergio, it was before we had children even, so it's definitely 10, maybe 12 years ago when I was here on holidays with him from Australia, and we were up at the bar and you came over and chatted, and of course, I didn't speak much Spanish then, so for someone to speak to me in English was just incredible. But I remember that so well, just how warmly you welcomed us. And I think, as a restaurateur, that's such a wonderful, it must be one of the best parts of it, is that you get to meet all these interesting people. And
as you said, the best part of being a restaurateur is when you actually, restaurant comes from the word restoration. So people come, you feed them, you people end up leaving more happy normally, so that's a nice part. And also welcoming, hospitality is about welcoming. In Spain, there's always been this beautiful thing, I think, about Spain is like the grandparents or mothers, they always kind of invited you, take you over, received you, regardless, whether you did something right or wrong. Yeah. So I inherited in a way that was in the family. So when you have a restaurant, you just do it with everybody. And the best part is that you meet people from all over Spain, all over the world that come, and you end up you end up getting to know a lot of stories and a lot of and Santander is a town that it has always been a big connection due to the sea to other ports and to other countries. So that's why I went to live in England, because my grandparents were in the shipping world. So my mother was sent to England when she was so a lot of Spanish people from Santander and Bilbao would send their children to England to learn English, because later on in life they would probably have to have
both languages
in order to work with the sailors, with the ships and stuff like that. So my mother went to live in England, and then she did the same to me, and I went to live in England for a while, for about 5 years.
So what age were you when you went?
I was 11. I
Wow.
was 11.
Did you board there?
Yeah, well, I went to school in England, and then I went to university in England as well.
Fantastic.
And then I worked. Actually, I came back to Spain, but then I went back to England, London, and I worked in the 90s with Terence Conran, who was one of the biggest restaurateurs. I did the opening of the Bluebird restaurant,
Wow.
and then I came back to Spain, and so also, and actually my training was with in the hospitality. My first job was with a hotel that belonged to the Savoy Group.
Oh, wow.
The owners of Claridge's, the Savoy.
Yes.
They had a hotel in Paris. So basically, my training was very much British in the sense of the hospitality. My first, during university, when I studied hospitality.
Wow.
So there was always the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and then to be able to come back and start with the two amazing premises of Deluz and here that you have, because they're both very experiential dining in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like Deluz is such a beautiful, we've been there many times, and it's such a beautiful house to go and sit, and then to spend the afternoon in the garden, whether you're at an event or you're just going on your own, and or to go for brunch, and it's they are different offerings, I think, to
we tried to, because it was a house, the project was to be kind of everybody's house. That people have smaller houses these days, and there was a fact that so if you run it with that concept of being your house that day for whatever you want to do, or you want to do a party for 10, for 12, and what we found is that people really kind of adapted that feeling and just enjoy it as if it was their house with a beautiful garden and a Sardinero, and they do events. They might do a wedding, they might do a christening, they might do like a 40-year-old birthday or a 50. So it's nice to. We always try to do that, and that's the most important. Keep that philosophy about it.
I love it. And then this space, when I first came to this space, it reminded me so much of Australia. The large open warehouse type feel, and also the. It's not very common either here to have a restaurant with such high ceilings.
No.
And you're quite generous with the space you give between tables. I love the long table experience, but you don't feel as if you're on top of people either. And it's always it's a low sensory experience for me, which I really like.
When we thought about the project, we work. My mother's a photographer. My brother's also a photographer. They've always worked in the industry, so they were specialized. My mother especially, she was in interior design magazines. So when we look at a place, we try and make sure that we try and see that everybody in each table kind of feels comfortable. So in terms of the lighting, in terms of the touch of the table, in terms of the sense of being there. I think that's sometimes you don't know why you're happy or comfortable in a restaurant. It's maybe because it's too noisy. In Spain, we're very noisy, by the way. So we talk loudly, and then if we don't have, we have a sound system that stops the sound. When we did it, we made a mistake the first time we opened a restaurant. We didn't put that sound kind of system, so it was horrible. It was like, because Spaniards, we shout, and then if one shouts, the other one shouts even more in a table. So we tried to do that so that the sound doesn't bounce back. And so in this restaurant, we put all the ceilings are special.
Amazing.
Thing, so that makes it more.
And even for someone who's moving here, who's learning the language, that's really important, because when you're learning a language, it can be very difficult, when you're concentrating to hear what the person is saying, and if there is an adequate sound proofing system. It can even make it more challenging for us.
It's like you don't know who you're hearing at the table next door, or so it all changes, and you try and concentrate to see what did they say. It's funny because if you cross the border to France, or when you go, even Italians, in a restaurant they behave much more quieter. We're very rowdy in Spain when we eat, very, very rowdy. It doesn't matter whether you go to southern Spain, where you go to Cantabria, we go to wherever valley you're in, we're always that. But it's that the way we are in the table. Where people talk, people get excited, people have a glass of wine, and they tell a joke, or so that
the theatrical, or they start singing afterwards with the beautiful.
And one says one thing, and the other wants to say another thing. So that's those things happen at the table.
No, it's wonderful. And of course, it's one of the few restaurants in Santander city that's actually on the water.
Yeah, that's quite unusual actually, because
it would have been, especially when you opened. There's two more that I can think of now, but probably when you opened, you would have been really one of the few.
Yeah, one of the few, and it's actually on the bay, because Santander has this amazing bay. It's actually the biggest bay in Spain. It's huge, because we've got, and it's the bay changes a lot because it looks to the south, so it looks onto the mountains. So you have this kind of vision of being like in Switzerland in a way. You don't look into the sea, you look into the mountains. So the light changes. Also, we have amazing tides, high and low. So that changes with the lights. So it's a place that is always very lively. Every 6 hours the tide goes up, tide goes down. So it's a beautiful part of the city. It's very unusual to have a town with so much exposure to the sea.
Totally, and I think people feel that people who move to Santander and may not have wanted to live in a city, but Santander for many people doesn't feel like a city, because of course it is a small city, and there is you more or less know a lot of people, but I think because you have the harbour, the bay, and then with the large mountain ranges behind, there's a sense of expansion.
Yeah, and then you go to the other parts of Santander, and you've got the high, you've got the actual high sea looking onto Britain, and that changes a lot. It's amazing because you can have a day which is the south wind, and here it will blow on the bay 180 kilometers per hour, 100, and you go to the other side of the bay, and there's no wind. So, and on the other way, the same around. When you have the nordeste, which is a wind that blows when it's a hot day, you always have nordeste. And that on this part of Santander is quieter because it's protected by the mountain that Santander protects it. So geographically, I think it's an amazing place to live, because you've got 12 beaches, I think, in Santander.
Just in Santander.
So it's just in Santander. So, and depending on the bay, depending on the wind, you go to one, you go to another, and people that live here know. I mean, and you grow up with it. Your dad tells you about it. He calls you up. What's the wind today? Or then if it's this wind, we'll go here. So you change your plan regarding of the wind, regarding of the tide,
to the temperature, to the weather,
to the tides, to the winds. So it's a fun city to live.
Definitely. And I'm really interested to know more about the philosophy of your business. So you have the two restaurants that you mentioned. You also have other restaurants here in Santander and in Madrid.
Yeah, we have another two here in Santander. Another one is actually the oldest restaurant in Santander. It's called El Machi. It was in one of the two buildings in the centre of town that didn't get didn't get burnt in the 1941 fire, and so we took over it 14 years ago. No more, actually, 16 years ago.
Wow.
From a family that had been running it for 100 years or so. And there we do very kind of classical Santander style food. Rices, we do a lot of rices as well. We do just simple Santander cooking. And then we have an Italian restaurant, because I worked with Italian restaurants in my past, and I also had a very good Italian friend of mine who had whose mother was she was a very famous cookery book in Italy.
Right.
And abroad. And so I used to run Italian restaurants in Madrid. So when that space was left, we thought about what could be done. And I was always in love with Italian cooking, so we tried to open a true, real Italian restaurant. So that's what we do. We do kind of all the regional recipes, but made with Spanish products and some Italian products. But if you're Italian, you will feel happy to be there, or if you miss Italian food, it's a place,
Definitely.
a safe place,
Yeah.
a safe place.
Yeah, no, it's another favourite of mine. My husband just jokes and says, "Oh well, if it's one of Carlos's restaurants, you'll be happy to go there, won't you?"
Well, I'm happy that you like it, because it's a small town, and I think the small town, if you have more than one restaurant, you need to. Actually, for us, we always say about it, because I always worked in big cities, and when I came back to Santander, if something wasn't right, people will tell you in the street. So you have this kind of quality of, if they don't like one of your dishes, they'll stop you and say, "Carlos, by the way, the other day I was, I went to your restaurant, the croqueta wasn't really nice,
Yeah.
or something happened." So it's nice that people tell you once they have confidence with you what they don't like. So they tell you, and you have the capacity to react to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a nice thing about being in a small city, that if they trust you, they tell you, and then you have to ask, obviously, if I'll tell you, I went there the other day, and you ask them, and the way you ask, you kind of know whether they had a good time, or whether or whether something was not, the way they look at you, or the way they answer.
Yeah.
So if you try to get the answer, which is not that, sometimes things don't go that well. So it's good to ask, but why not?
Definitely, yeah.
And you learn from
Feedback is,
that,
yeah.
And then in Madrid we have restaurants which are very old. We have two which are very old. One is 19th century, another one is like early 1950s, and we have a coffee place where we roast the coffee, and that's that's it.
But you really look after your staff as well. There's quite a social aspect to how you work with people, and then also
because my sister was she was a lawyer. She worked in immigration. She worked in a non-governmental agency when we started the restaurant. So she was running the whole process of. There was no migration there's no immigration in Santander until early 2000. There was no people from South America, from Africa, from whatever. So when they started coming into looking for jobs and stuff, there was a lot of illegal kind of status problems. So my sister set that up with an agency, and she was helping a lot of people to get the kind of papers, work permits and stuff. So from that aspect, we're always trying to work, and right now about 25% of the people that worked with us have come from different social programs of introduction to work. Maybe you're a young immigrant, or maybe you're a person with comes from the home care, or maybe you're over 45 and you've been out of work for the last 4 years. So we always work with different local agencies to set these projects up, and so we're about maybe more than 20 nationalities in the restaurants. I think 25 or so, and so that makes it rich in a way that each person kind of brings in their own background. Also, there's no barriers in the company, so you can be whoever, whatever, and you can just learn a trade, which is important to learn. If you want to be a chef, or if you want to be a waiter, if you want to be or you just want to be in the cleaning project, it's up to you what you want to do, and that's always been a good for us. That's always been, I think, one of the special things about our restaurants, that people stay. Also, this kind of social conditions of work, the timetables, we've always been protective of that. Because
restaurant work can be tough, right?
It can be tough.
I'm sure you've worked in some tough restaurants growing up.
And you need to have so people need to express themselves if they're not happy. People need to have a good working timetable. If they need a weekend from time to time, you have to give them to them, because it doesn't, otherwise you'll have no life. So that we've always tried to balance that in the restaurants, and that's why I think when you go in our restaurants, if it's a normal day, or people will receive you in a nice way. People are happy to work, and they'll cook nicely. I mean, if you're not happy, you don't cook happily, and the food doesn't taste.
No.
No.
Yeah.
So
the good energy going
the
around.
energy needs to be, if it's cooked properly, if the place is clean, if it's not cleaned properly, with a happy kind of, not happy, but with a nice attitude, the place won't be clean. People will know, people won't come back. At the end of the day, in a town like Santander, it's a small community, so you need to be, true to what you do all the time, because there's tourism, but you need to have a very strong local base.
Yeah, of course.
If you don't have a local base in a business in Cantabria, you can't just live from people that come in the summer.
No, definitely not. No. But I think that is, it wasn't on my things to talk to you about today, but it is something that expats moving here notice, is the level of customer service, how it's different here to in, say, the States or in the UK. There's often, if you go to get a picture of the tortilla in a café con leche, you're not going to be smiled at or greeted. It's kind of just yeah. And I explain to people, it's like, it's just how it is. Like, it's not you, it just is. And I think, but what I always explain to people is that Santander people are very authentic. And so they won't, in some countries you go to and everyone's like, oh darling, and talking all lovely to you, and then you walk away and they'll, bitch about you behind your back. That just doesn't happen here. There might be a little bit of a front at the beginning, but once you break through that, it's a much more genuine and long-lasting relationship that you have with people, rather than it's much more honest and genuine rather than fake.
I think it's each town in Spain, or each region has, the different. If you go to Cádiz, or the different when Santander people, much, as you say, they could be at first a bit. They might not sound so welcoming, or they'll just be more. But once they get to know you, people are friendly. People
very much so. And very loyal.
Yeah, very loyal. People are they're nice. It's just there's a nice. It's I think it's not that. It might be not so effusive at first. They might not kiss you 5 times like they do in southern Spain or whatever. But in the long run, it's great.
I agree. It's great. Totally. Yeah, but it is something that I kind of forewarn people about, that it's not you. It's just how it is. And it's okay, right?
Yeah, it's okay.
And, things are different everywhere, but
and you go to Asturias and people change a little bit.
Exactly.
And then you go to the Basque Country and it's different.
Yeah.
And things are changing also. I came here 20 years ago, and it was kind of more. At the time, Santander was more kind of. We weren't so used to so many people moving in, and now it's like, wow, great. Now it's great. It's like there's people coming from other countries to live. Not just Europe, but other parts of the world. So I think the society is changing a lot, and that there's much more multi-integration of different nationalities. That's becoming a true, very energetic city. A lot of young people starting to move in.
Yeah, definitely. And I've noticed that I've been coming here for maybe 15 years and living here for 5 years. And I notice now that people are more used to hearing people speak Spanish with an accent.
Yeah, at first you're kind of
when I come first, I'll be like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Just work with me, please," Where now they kind of, it must be, sounded kind of like this. That must be it. And so there's more of a dialogue.
Yeah, and also the younger generation, like the early 20s, and the late teens, they actually speak English now.
Yeah.
My friends in Spain, we started to learn English when we were 14 at school, so nobody spoke the language basically, even now, unless they went to live in England or the States. So now my children, they go to normal Spanish school and they speak English. So they'll speak so that's nice.
Still have to learn the language, because that's such an important part of integrating.
And it's the best thing. The same I learned English when I went to live in England. It's
the immersion.
The immersion, and you get to know more people. You get to understand why things work one way or another.
And that's what we created this podcast about is, you know, people are moving here, and I'm really passionate to help them understand why certain things are the way they are, why certain Cantabrian cultural things are, because I firmly believe that if you don't understand and don't have that level of education, how can you contribute to culture? You know, culture is a living thing. And so, thanks so much for being my foodie to talk to. So